What's your name and what do you teach?
My name is Paul, and I teach science and maths.
Where did you study?
I studied at Southampton University.
What was your favorite childhood book or story?
My favourite childhood book was probably Matilda by Roald Dahl.
I loved Matilda. I loved Matilda so much. She was so sassy. I loved her. Um, why do you love science and maths?
um, I think I love it because it helps me to think more scientifically about the world and helps me to solve problems in a more logical and effective way. Yeah.
Okay, good answer. Okay. Who inspires you the most?
I would say Richard Feynman, is pretty up there. He he's a famous physicist, but he has a really good way of describing things in a very rudimentary way, so as the average person on the street sort of understands what he means. So he can explain extremely complicated things to the average person, which is, I think, obviously what teaching is all about, especially teaching science, of course.
We've had a lot of people talk about other teachers, like teachers inspiring them, and I guess Richard Feynman is like the ultimate teacher,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
ultimate kind of.
Yeah, there's a good YouTube series. Well, it was obviously not originally a YouTube series called "It's Fun to Imagine" by Richard Feynman, and he's just sitting in an armchair, and people are just asking him questions about what he finds interesting, and he just talks about how we see the world using light, and he talks about what light is, and he kinds of links it to an analogy of an insect trying to determine the world by detecting the ripples on a surface of a swimming pool. And yeah, it's just really inspiring, really interesting the way he enthusiastically, just by talking, he doesn't use any. I mean, all those other little teaching aids are extremely helpful, but he just uses hand gestures and talks, but you're brought in by his way of explaining things. It's really interesting. Mm.
Sounds great. Um, in 3 words, describe your teaching style.
Um, let's go for uh, inspiring, enthusiastic, and flexible.
Good choices. Okay. Why are the sciences and maths important, like in society, do you think?
Um, well, I think it's very important to have a scientifically literate population, especially when it comes to, for example, making decisions about who to vote for, what to vote for, and decisions in the world, like what shall I buy? Why is if somebody says that this is bad for you, that's bad for you, you're able to actually know what's true, or have an idea of or method into how to find out what's true, because I think nowadays we're really swamped by just too much information, and we often feel a bit lost, and we don't know really who's telling us the truth, because we hear contradictory messages from all around us, and we never really know what's quite right. And so I think having a scientific, not just, in fact, probably more importantly, to have a scientific way of solving these problems, having a population of people who have that skill, then we're more likely to, well, hopefully, not be quite so driven by aggression and arguments and falling out and disagreeing with one another. We can actually solve problems in a more effective way without clashing. I, that's the ideal.
I guess it's like with the COVID-19 pandemic, was seeing
Mm,
scientists at the forefront of their field kind of coming out and
yeah, that's
talking
right.
about what the politicians were deciding. And it was interesting to watch the population trying to interpret that information, wasn't it? Because
Yeah,
some
yeah,
could,
it was
some couldn't.
absolutely. This past year or so has been a perfect war of politics against science, or politics against truth, and the clashing of, this is the case, this is the situation, this is clearly the best thing that we should do, versus how that will be processed and interpreted by the population, and what's the best way to spin it. And it's been very interesting. I've had lots of conversations with people, friends, and just people I've bumped into about what's right and what's wrong, and it's just amazing how unscientifically literate the average person on the street is, and they make decisions. And I often have to, well, I don't have to, but hopefully they appreciate that I explain, oh, did you know that this is actually the case, and they're like, oh right, I didn't realise this. And usually these kind of confusion and ignorance often leads to aggression, especially if you have one party, one group of people who think very strongly one thing, another group of people feel very strongly another. And what the scientific process is all about is you have a theory, and you're welcoming evidence to disprove your theory. You don't hold tightly onto the belief. It's not a belief system. We're trying to get close to the truth. So if somebody says, I don't think you're right about that, you want to know, you want to hear more. You don't push them away and say, no, you don't tell me I'm wrong. If somebody points a chink in your theory, like there's an issue with it, then you'll very, very enthusiastically want to know. I mean, obviously there's the human element where you will be a little bit protective over your theory. Even you'd like it to be true, but you, more importantly, as a professional scientist, you want to get to the truth, not just to be right. And I think that's what the pursuit of science is all about, to get to the truth. And so we're always very welcome to hear people disagree with us.
Kind of a nice, that was a really nice summary. I think I really liked that. Okay. And finally, can you give me your top tip for, I think we're going to go with physics, aren't we?
Yeah, so I mean, I teach maths and science. I've taught science the longest, and I've always from when I was teaching science, I specialised in physics. So I think one of the things that people struggle most with physics is they often feel like it doesn't seem to be making. The thing that the teachers just told me, I don't think I understand it because it doesn't seem to make sense in my head. Well, there's a saying in quantum physics, which is, if you think you understand quantum physics, then you don't understand quantum physics. Because by going around and kind of thinking, yeah, I get that, then you probably haven't understood what's confusing about it in the first place. So to sometimes get to the point of confusion in many science subjects, especially in physics, you've at least understood what's weird about it, and certainly you want to seek clarification in those situations, because it's also possible that you have got it wrong, but also to seek clarification that you've got it right. And so basically the top tip would be, if you feel totally lost and confused and things don't make sense, then you're in good company, because a lot of scientists also feel like certain things don't make any sense.
And I guess like at that point as well, as a tutor, you're there for someone to say, actually, I don't understand this. Can you help me out?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for example, when I was teaching electricity recently, I talked about what current means, what voltage means, what resistance means, and all those definitions use the word charge in it. And they said, well, what is charge? So, well, to be honest with you, physicists don't really know what charge is. They just know that there's a positive and negative charge. Some things have charge, some things don't. A positive attracts a negative, and like charges repel. We don't really know what charge actually is, and this is also related to why science is interesting as well. That sometimes we think we get something, like we understand when you let go of something, it falls to the ground. We actually start to pick that apart and keep asking the question why. You start to realise that you don't actually get it at all, and that links back to that saying that if you think you understand it, then you don't understand it. You've got further to go with your understanding. You've got to get to the point where you realise it doesn't actually make sense. Why is it that I can't put my hand through a table? You just take things as read. Well, because you can't. Well, that doesn't answer the question. If you actually look at the actual details of what's going on in terms of the atomic level, and then even further, what's going on inside the atoms and so on, the answer to the question gets more and more. In fact, there are many different answers to a very simple question, and those answers can be more and more in depth and relate. You could talk about relativity, quantum physics, or classical mechanics, and so so yeah, basically, if you don't understand something, then you've made some progress.
Well, that's good to know. Very reassuring. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Okay, no problem. Thanks.